First. Yeah.
Hold on, let me get recording here before you,
Oh.
then we'll introduce everybody.
You want that? I think that.
Oh, okay, that's what we had before.
Yeah, this is last week's.
Okay. I think that's. Not hearing anything.
There he
Hey,
is.
Praneet.
Yeah, there you go, there we go.
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order at 5 o'clock. Let's do introductions.
Scott Breyer, select board.
Not more, select board.
Dan Webster, select board.
Matt Maxwell, Town Administrator.
Pretty much school board.
Stephanie Rondo, Planning Commission. Do a more on resident.
You. We have no changes to the agenda tonight. Public comment? Assuming none. Okay, so the main thing here is the sidewalk scoping study, and first off, on behalf of the board and the town, we just want to thank you guys for an excellent report. I mean, you can tell you put a lot of work into this, and it took you a long time. It's very thorough, very comprehensive, and very well done. Right, guys?
Thank you.
Don't really, when you started this, I don't know, it was a couple years ago, right? So we've got kind of a different board now. At least two of these guys, Scott probably knows a little bit about it, but Bad Scott and Dan here. They don't know, so I know you've got a presentation prepared, but I think maybe to start, just tell these guys how this started. How did we decide on sidewalks? How did we get from this where we are right now today, back us all the way up to when you first, so these guys have a whole history of the project here.
So the goal of the project was to get pedestrians from Lady Bird Park. The original goal was to get pedestrians from Lady Bird Park to the school without major incident, which required a few separate things. We looked into sidewalks, we looked into the crosswalk, a few variations of each. So along the way, it kind of changed into few different sections. We're still working on the crosswalk to the school, which I do have some idea about once we get through this. But this pretty much pertains to in the village, so we can get people, to the post office, from their houses, to the community center, to the senior housing, the meeting house, once we get that far. Just to make it a little safer for everybody and encourage people to walk a little bit more around.
Okay. Yeah,
You remember if it was part of was it Peter Mayweather? Was it his plan? Remember when he came in?
I don't know. I was gonna ask, is that where this sort of came from when they did that?
No.
No.
Talking about the fair weather report and before they come.
Yeah,
I don't think that's different, yeah, so that's
Okay.
the development plan that we had, right? That did not include this, however, I think this was because we got the village center designation. And I think at the time when I think Amanda was the town clerk, and what her post was, but.
he was me, I think.
Right, okay, so there you go. I believe that these grants were available, and so it was something that we filled out and said, hey, we could benefit from this because we have the center designation. We transfer the pay for the study and then potentially cover a significant portion of the construction itself if everything gets approved. And that's where the grant went in, and then everything kind of precipitated after that.
Okay, so just clear me up on that. So we're not an incorporated village, but we've got a village designation,
Village center designation, correct?
Just for right here in the town.
village center designation. And what does that give us for?
It opens us up to a lot of grants from the state, which require us to be, there are a lot of grants that are available to village centers. And so us getting that designation for this area basically opens it up for, there's a huge list of things that we can now ask for money because we are designated as a village center here.
Gotcha, and did that come from the Mayweather?
I think so, yeah, I think it was part of his.
Okay. Connect all dots.
Yeah.
Okay, makes sense. All right.
So as far as the sidewalks themselves, skip ahead a few pages for the full map. We split it into 3 sections. First section would be from Ladybird Park to the intersection here.
What page you on?
3-1.
3 or 4, yeah, 3-1 would be the map.
Rating.
It's like page 3 or 4,
Oh, page.
right after the summary.
Okay,
That's it.
yep,
So the first section would be from the main road there at Ladybird Park down to the Conway Court. Second section would be this main strip here down towards the meeting house. And the third section would be up the rest of the way up to the road by the school. So we broke it into 3 sections, thinking that would be easier to manage the ideas on it. So we had a few challenges with the first section. So from Ladybird Park up to Conway Court, the challenge of being all of the commercial spots there have really wide driveways. So in order to be compliant, we would have to make their entryways smaller, which didn't really work for the big trucks.
Do you mind if I just kind of jump? in?
Absolutely, you were there.
Just kind of before we get into the details of it, though, so we broke it up into 3 sections, and one of the things is per the V-Trans process, we have to come up with different alternatives for what our plan is going to be. They didn't just want to just have us recommend one thing and we vote with that. And so for that, it kind of came up that it might be easier to break up in 3 sections, and so each section then had 3 alternatives or 4 alternatives assigned to it based on whether we wanted no sidewalks, sidewalks on both sides, or sidewalk on one side. And then we did a survey of that. And once we did a survey, the results came back. And when the results came back, I can't remember, I think on segment 1, they wanted sidewalks on both sides. Segment 2, I think was the same, and segment 3, I think was one side. I don't remember the details, but that's where we kind of ran into issues. Is if the survey came back and said, oh, we're okay with it, it weren't an issue. If the survey came back and said we needed cross or the sidewalk on one side, it was okay, but because the survey said one thing, V-Trans now has to follow the survey, and so we had to kind of figure out what to do with it. And so, like Stephanie said, we got DeRoche's trucking there as well as Martha's, and on both those sides, the part that's flush with the road is more than 40 feet, sitting at about 80 feet or something. And if we are to go and use V-Trans money to build those sidewalks, they have to bring it up to the code, which is 40-foot driveways, and that's something that neither of those property owners want to do. So then the question is, do we want to start a back and forth with the property owners, figure out if we want to do that, or just say we can, maybe find another alternative?
And so that was the first section. So the planning commission, based on the survey, would suggest at this point to do nothing with the first section. There are, as far as the V-Trans money is concerned, there's always ways in the future where we can still do something there that would be not necessarily compliant, but then we wouldn't get any grant money for it. So that we can look into it separate.
There are no sidewalks there now at all,
There's no sidewalks over there at all.
none there.
And so that goal of going from Ladybird Park all the way over is kind of not going to be fulfilled.
Is there a sidewalk in the public parking isn't there a sidewalk there?
By the parking, yes, but
Mhm.
there's nothing coming down the line that connects to the rest of Main Street. And that's really kind of what we wanted to do, but there were thoughts, we could have painted something in, we could have gone flush with the road in some sections. A lot of things were discussed, but like Stephanie said, it's V-Trans money. If we have to use their money, we need to do it based on what this report, says. And the report said that we were supposed to do it on both ends, and V-Trans would then require us to build it by shortening their driveways. So I think the easier solution was to do nothing, And then if we wanted to, as a town, we still have a community development fund that has been sitting around doing nothing for multiple years. So there's some availability if we decide to do it. But again, right, like the question is, how much do you really need a sidewalk there? We started off this whole thing with the idea of going from all the way from there to the school, but how much pedestrian traffic do we really see in that area? And that's something that we want to take into account when we make these decisions.
Gotcha.
So for, you want to move on to the second section?
Sure, yep, go for it.
So the second section would be from Conway Court down to the meeting house. There was talk of putting a sidewalk on one side or both sides, and what we came to was putting a sidewalk on both sides and also cross that.
Yeah, I think we were gonna have one by the end of the road, if I'm not mistaken, right, like at the end of the segment. By what the common was.
Yes, yes, I think I just thought that was part of the section. So yes, on the chart there, 4-3. Just a few pages back to the last one. So 4-2 and 4-3 are both good options, but I think the survey suggested 4-3. People wanted a good sidewalk on both sides of the road for this section, a crossway, across the main road here and across Conway Court. And that opens up for, well, we had originally allotted for 3 parallel parking spots in the front of the building here. But now that we have the parking, the larger parking, will not be necessary.
Stephanie, was this the section with the historical
Yes,
stuff? Right?
yes, we have two small historical sections. If we were to put a sidewalk on both sides, there is a little rock wall right out here in front of, like headed towards Conway Court,
Yeah,
that they might have to look into for historical value to tell us whether we can disturb it or not. I believe that was one of the only section on.
Right, I think I think I was thinking of the commons, but yeah, I'll.
Right, the color is the. Yeah.
The only thing, yeah, I'll make with that.
So this one would get everybody across the road to the post office and up to the. Of course, meeting now.
well, even if it's not historic, it is pretty aesthetically pleasing. I mean, it's the one in front of Holmesville's, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Bill house there, and
I think it's one of those check boxes they need from a state standpoint, that if there's something like of historical value that they market. So if we're gonna do construction in that area, we're gonna have to get someone to take a look at it and assess it.
one way or the other.
Exactly.
I was also told recently that we have to move that post office within 2 years.
Okay.
So, I mean, they still want it somewhere in the village, but they will not be renewing their lease at that location, so it's gonna be gone from there.
Okay.
We talked about the downstairs of the meeting house at one point, but that's.
Yeah.
So they're gonna start a delivery system?
What's that?
They're gonna start a delivery service?
I don't know, they want something like that in the village, they just don't want it there.
Okay. Right.
So they're, they said, start looking for another place if you want, if you want to keep it here.
Looking at the second section. From the end of Conway Court to the meeting house,
Mhm.
and so we have sidewalks here now. So how do the current sidewalks play into the discussion that you had? Are they
It
No.
sounded like they would
In
be,
conformity, would they have to be removed and replaced?
yeah, everything, it sounded like everything we had would have to be altered in some way, either to raise it up higher. Or to make it higher.
And maybe.
And for 80, yeah.
Yeah, so if we're gonna touch it, like, none of these were this, they were all going to be built with like, granite curves or concrete curves and all that, so. It would be a full redo. We're
Tear it
not,
all out, tear it all out.
yep, everything will be gone, everything we put in, even with the crosswalks that we're talking about, putting in some of those, I don't know what they're called, but like, it's those rubber things that you can kind of bolt in for like speed bumps if we need to. Yeah, and then, the concern was that plowing might be an issue if we had speed bumps, and so they're okay, and maybe whenever we can pull it off, but then that in terms of the maintenance, so it's. What do we really want, so. But yeah, the whole thing would be updated. With some additions. But I think we have segment 3, right?
Oh, actually, I was just looking through the paper, that is part of segment 2, up to the commons.
Okay.
There would be a problem, not a problem, but a little hurdle there, to make sure there's proper paperwork for ownership of that piece of property. Sounds like there was some lost information a while back. That, and everybody is in agreement that the town owns it, but it's not on paper technically, so that might take a little bit of extra research from somebody in the state.
Yeah,
So that would have been lost to a fire. I'm
Yeah.
assuming,
Yeah,
that's what we're thinking.
100 years ago.
yeah, the big
It
fire.
doesn't exist, so it would have to be. It would have to go through the court system, I would think, in order to have anybody challenge it and.
Yeah.
Go through the,
Yeah, I don't know if there's any way like. Proof of ownership with anything else, I mean, if there's nothing else exists, yeah, but I mean, what the court systems, there are other waivers or something that you can use, but.
And where's this spot?
the common,
That little triangular section right out there, no one knows who owns it.
there's no deed to it now, all the town records are.
Maybe we should slide them on there.
There we go.
It's a plan, we get some spotted flags.
Come up with that. How long is that?
30 days, right?
30, that's it.
I think.
Philip.
Freaking Buchanan will kick you guys out of there in a day. Yeah.
We don't need to pay the sheriff. Another time, it'll be like, fine.
You know, one point we talked about right here. Possibly, before we had the parking lot here, we talked about closing this off. Eliminating this, growing this common area bigger, maybe just a little more, they can stretch the road.
Just keep going straight.
Make this would be all grass. You know, and instead of having all this, just. When they're still getting could you have parking, you'd be able to put some parking right here too, in that corner. You know what I mean, there's quite a bit of space between the community center and the common.
Yeah.
You could park like 8 or 10 vehicles, you can drive right in and walk over to the post office or parking over here. I just a thought.
Yeah, I'm guessing that at some point in history, that's probably the new leg right there. And because of the way that flows. I'm guessing that was an added. But yeah, either way,
What Gallup talked about was.
Orleans did that years ago.
Was to stop and. Like. Having it, if this wasn't here, getting a run up on this side, which I don't think this would be as. To close this off would make it prettier for the church, but probably going down this hill, it probably would be something that would be making up that hill. But there's some thoughts, yeah, probably. If you're trying to dress up the town, there's some different things you can do.
Yeah.
Segment 3?
Section 3.
Three. On to. Section 3, from the. Common here, for the school. We looked at several. Putting it sidewalks on both sides of the road, and I think we landed on putting one sidewalk on the side of the road that the post office is on. Continuing that all the way up to the main road, up by the school. I don't know if there's Any historical?
I think that one's,
Okay.
the only hiccup with that is she getting the crosswalk from there to the school.
Right.
So.
Right.
All the property entrances on that side are kind of standard.
Yeah, there didn't seem to be any issue with them, like at least the Ukraine group didn't flag anything.
It, to me, it seems ridiculous, there's no crosswalk at the school and
So that's the issue there is let me back up. In order for us to put a crosswalk across any road, the speed limit needs to be 40 or less. Speed limit there is 50 miles an hour. So I contacted V-Trans about reducing that speed limit, and their response basically was. Just based on the incidents that have happened there and how that road gets used, it's very unlikely that they would reduce the speed limit. However, if we do have to do it, then it has to come from the select board. And it has to go to them, then they have to have some engineers come out here, do a review, and then they'll give their official word on it, and then we can appeal it if we don't like it, and so on and so forth, but. Yeah, that's the thing with the crosswalk, we need the speed limit to be at least 35, and then on the other hand. You also need the school to have something that comes to that road. So right now, the school doesn't have a sidewalk or anything on that other end that meets the road, it's just that, the painted thing that you can walk by the field. So then the school has to do something on their end. So there are a few more moving parts to that piece, not that we can't do it,
There is a program through Vermont, Safe Pathways to School that I've been looking into. We can apply for a scoping study grant through them to look into just the crosswalk and the connector to the school. I just wanted to get things set on this end before I just go and get a crosswalk to nowhere.
Has anybody done a study like how many students live in the town that actually walk to school?
Yeah, so I had Christie sent me some numbers a while ago, and it was significant enough, like between not just walking to school, right? But you also have Coventry Day, for example, we've got people who park over there across the road to come over to, partake in the festivities. Or any other events that we have, or we have people go back and forth. If they have after school programs, we have kids who cross the road for reading. So it's not just coming to and from school. I think it added up to like about 200 or 300 crossings in a given week or something along those lines. It's a decent number for that speedy highway.
And I have spoke to some people that don't live too far that do drop their kids off because it's not safe. So I think it would increase the traffic and just didn't make it safe for them.
So yeah, so I mean, that scoping study, I think is a good idea. I'm just leery about spending more money on a scoping study and then have V-Trans come back and say no, as opposed to just us going to the select board and say, hey, we request that you guys come and change the speed limit. That then turns on a clock on their end, and now they have to go through the process of taking a look at these things. So it'd be more powerful if it comes with that. Otherwise, it will be just like this. They'll give us a wonderful report at the end of it, and then we still have to go through and do all the other legwork.
It would probably slow it down. We over here and at the stop sign and around the 5 lawyers.
They'll have to, yeah, they have to stop some pretty.
Like a Lincoln Lane and then the 35, when you go into towns.
The town line. By road,
Yeah.
the town line.
Yeah, especially with those large trucks with the brakes and stuff. I mean, they're gonna have to start applying way back there if they want to slow down to 35 here, so.
I was just gonna say, that's kind of a dangerous place anyways, because you've got all those big trucks coming around that corner.
Exactly. That's the concern of the crosswalk, so we may be able to put it, but we can't change what traffic goes on that road.
Would call it underneath the road.
I was just gonna. A big box culvert.
Yeah. But anyways, that's
Palms got
the bridge that goes over.
the top bridge.
People don't want to walk up the stairs.
No, I mean, that's.
They gotta take my chance running across the road or walk up 75 minutes. They could be.
Yeah, like accessibility.
Exactly.
It wasn't maintenance.
They would probably feel even at 35, it's not a safe spot to have a crosswalk coming down.
Well, you got the crossing guards, collective,
Mhm.
which would be the school.
Yep.
On the school, so you'd have to partner with the school.
Yep.
In order for them to be on board.
Yeah, and like I said, the school there's going to do a construction to build that little sidewalk or something that.
Or there, so I run there.
Yeah,
Plus the guards,
yeah, plus the guards, yeah.
cost to them.
But luckily, no one's got hit by a car there yet.
Not yet, but I think we don't have as many people walking by and trying to cross that road.
Right, it's not safe.
So I think people are just being smart, you know. I don't want to wait for an incident to occur either before we try to do something about it. So my 2 cents would be just get the process started. I don't think it costs us much to get the process started. Everything is gonna figure it out on our end and to see what V-Trans has to say, because if they come back and they're gonna fight us on even reducing the speed limit, then everything else is a moot point. It doesn't matter if you want to cross the line or if the school can find the money for the sidewalk, and none of that matters if V-Trans says we're not gonna reduce the speed limit. So that's step one.
So that is in the village limits.
Right, it's in the village designation, yeah, village center limits, correct.
It's in the boundary, within the boundary of the village limit.
Yeah.
So. That gives you some teeth with V-Trans, just like any little village there, when they built that. Around, because this was Route 5 right here.
Yeah,
So when they built that around, they thought they were
do us a favor.
doing them a favor in traffic and just not having to slow down for the village.
Yeah,
Why they did it.
I mean, I would have thought that telling them we have a school on the other side and we're trying to put a crosswalk would have had some teeth, and that would have been like, okay, maybe you want to look into it, but
Well, I mean, that came way after.
I'm sorry.
That came way after.
No, I sent them an email while this project was going on,
Oh.
under the auspices of this project, said, hey, we want to put a crosswalk from our village to the school. And so we would like to reduce the speed limit. Can you guys help us out? And their response is, just based on the usage and what traffic goes down there, we don't recommend reducing it. And if you do want to, then have the select board go through the process. So,
Regardless if there's a crosswalk or not, trying to attempt to reduce the speed in that area only makes sense.
yes, generally speaking.
Just to help the kids who cross anyways.
Oh, yeah. And it's kind of a busy area too. You're kind of coming across blind from that corner, like there's an intersection going out to 14 that way. I think it just makes sense in general. But
And
That's
30
right.
and 35 is the number they threw at you.
40 is the number to have crosswalks,
40.
but we would like to be 35. I don't even know if below 35 would be possible for the trucks coming down there. I mean, if they have to go from 50 to 15, to a complex school zones are usually, I don't know what it's in, but at least in every other place I've been to.
It's
but
not even
15
called a school zone.
No.
They come to the school zone and had 25-mile-an-hour flashing sign on both ends. People would slow down, right? You do, it comes up in your car,
Yep,
That
would be the way to
like
go.
truck there and you're going, yeah, it comes up straight
Right
there.
there.
Oh, no, it doesn't here,
Oh,
no,
it doesn't.
no, it doesn't exist in the school zone. But it should be a school zone.
Yeah, it is a school zone.
Yeah,
It isn't.
exactly,
Designated.
yeah. But regardless of the crosswalk problem and regardless of, us not doing anything in segment one, I think this report does put out a decent path forward for us to, update our sidewalks. And I think even if we don't do those things, we should at least focus on this aspect and see what we can get done with it. If that is something that we believe we need done in the village. That's
Well,
where-
it almost seems like we would want, at first blush, it almost wants to seem like we should be working the opposite way. And starting at the school and building this way.
Yeah.
Rather than the other way around.
I mean, that's how it's gonna end up being, we go that route, right?
Yeah.
And there's nothing saying that we do segment one first, segment two second, segment three third, right? Just however the heck you wanna do it.
Yeah.
And, we might look at the construction costs in there. Those numbers were pulled from, I don't know how much the COVID values affected. I don't know how real those numbers are.
I think
So,
they look pretty inflated to me.
We thought it was construction wasn't completed, then look what happened, right, like it's,
Was it like 600 something?
I think overall, yeah, I think it was like 400 something, I think. So nothing for segment one, about 500K for segment three. And
Well, nothing for segment one if you go with option one.
that is what we're recommending in the report, and V-Trans won't pay for anything other than what is recommended in the report.
It goes to full on page 37.
Segment 3 alternate. With the sidewalk just on one side of the building, 283,000.
Oh, sorry, I mean, as a full numbers and.
It's 430 feet of sidewalk, I guess.
For the two, or 1583 on page 37 was.
So back me up to that statement there, Praneeth. So this is still draft.
No, this is the final report.
This is the final.
Okay, so this is the final report. And if we had gone based on the survey. We would have put in, we want sidewalks on both ends, and if that made it into the report. Then, and V-Trans was going to help us out with paying for this construction, they wouldn't pay for anything other than putting 2 sidewalks down over there. And so that's why we worked out, we're not gonna do anything with that section, because if it's in the report, then V-Trans will follow that. So we said, nothing there, and if the town decides to do something, we'll do something for section 1. But now that we've picked alternative, I can't remember the number, but 2 sidewalks for segment 2 and 1 sidewalk for segment 1. If we want V-Trans to pay for it, or if we want V-Trans to cost share for it, then we have to do what's in the report. We can't change our mind and be like, well, I know that the report says segment 3 is doing alternative 2, we're gonna change it to this, V-Trans won't help us out. That make sense?
It doesn't make sense that the select board wouldn't have some input on the money.
They do, but what I'm saying is if we're cost sharing it with V-Trans, if they're gonna pay any portion of it, they will only pay for what's in the report, and we can't.
We need to customize this.
That's why I asked if it was a draft, so we could.
No. So here's why, because the report has to follow what the surveys did. Right, and so that's why the surveys were put out. We had a local concerns meeting where we opened it up for folks to come and talk about what needed to happen. We put out 2 different surveys with all of the alternatives. The surveys were online and got sent out through parents squared by the school. We put it up in the town offices, and so the community had a chance to talk about what they wanted. And because it went, and that's the process that V-Trans requires for them to, first of all, pay for scoping studies and then pay for projects. Down the line, if the town decides to go with it. So this obviously doesn't, put us on the hook for doing this project, but if we do go through it. And we want V-Trans to cost share. Then they will go based on what is in that report.
So segment 3 alternate 3. They wouldn't approve alternate 3.
No, because
That's actually what
that
we
was-
have for segment 3 is all great.
right, but if they want to approve, if we suddenly decide we don't want to do anything for, the do nothing option doesn't matter, but if we change the option, they won't pay for that, for example, because it's now.
Something different than what they're doing, they're not gonna.
So let's say
Exactly, that's basically it.
So you're telling me if we wanted to do segment 3, alternate 2 or alternate 3, they're okay with either one, they would pay.
No, they will only pay for the ones that we recommended in the project. So what's that page then?
Page 37.
So whatever's on page 37, that adds up to the total cost, that is all that they're gonna pay for. All of the other alternatives were the process that we went through to get to those.
Okay, alternate fee, that, okay.
So if we pick anything other than those alternatives, we won't get a cost sharing from V-Trans.
Okay, well, it looks like the alternates that you picked seem to be the correct ones that make the most sense anyway.
Yes.
Okay. So,
Let's back up into that one again.
Good.
Because I never accept something that easily.
Fair enough.
So So what I'm hearing you say is that the select board provided its authority to the committee
Okay,
to have discussions and make decisions on the expending of that money on behalf of the town
which money are we talking about, the scoping study or the construction?
construction.
No.
No, we have not done anything from a construction standpoint.
But we're geared into a channel that the select board didn't have the way to decide.
No, what the select board did was it authorized the planning commission to run a scoping study through V-Trans. V-Trans processes require us to go through this exact process and then come up with a recommendation. So all we've done so far is follow the V-Trans process and come at the end of it. What we do with this study is totally up to us. If we decide to do any other alternative, we absolutely can. We just won't get V-Trans to be able to pay for those alternatives.
This is the only way V-Trans is gonna pay for any
Yeah.
portion of it is,
If-
this is what they've approved.
It won't bind us to doing that. We can do whatever we want, it just means we have to.
V-Trans has already picked it. I'm still.
No, V-Trans hasn't picked it, we picked it as a town through surveys. Then we sent it to V-Trans for approval. They approved and said, okay, we see what you guys are doing, and if you guys go through, then we give our blessing for the scoping study. In case you want to go through construction in the future. So now we have a V-Trans approved project in our hands, which if we decide to go through with it. They will pay for everything they approved, but if we decide to deviate from what is approved in that report, then we are on the hook for paying for ourselves. It doesn't bind the select board to do absolutely anything.
So if we like the way segment 3 is, segment 2 is. And V-Trans, will we pay 20%, they pay 80,
Yes,
and we approve that, then alternative 1, we can say, all right, let's the town pay for, let's put 100 feet of sidewalk down by Ladybird Park, 5 feet wide.
Yep.
And leave markers and all the rest of the left side of the road exactly the way it is.
Yep.
Maybe fix up the corner.
we could even put sidewalks on the left side and not follow V-Trans code. That's the best part, I think, of all of this too, is that if we, the town decides to do it, we have the ability to do it however, but if V-Trans has to pay for all of this. Then the 40-foot driveway kind of comes into play, and then, all of these things kind of come, and that's why we want to do nothing. Because then if we decide to do something. We can do whatever.
Some of those places may be fine if it was a wider
Exactly.
parking.
Yeah,
Right, you're better off to say nothing for segment 1, otherwise you won't get any funds.
yeah, because I think the original was that we wanted sidewalks on both ends, and if we had gone with that. It would have been we would have done ourselves into a deeper hole than we are in right now.
So at the end of the day, right now, this whole plan, after we get the grant money back, it's costing town about $5,000 for this study.
Possibly, yeah, I think the grant will
I
like
think
take
that's what
that.
Dave said this. Dave said this.
That was good, that was good. Ed.
But 30,
So it's out of our pocket, but we'll get it refunded. So,
Yes.
26,000 started back.
You got 80% of the way there.
For 100.
Huh?
Waiting for 100.
That last 20 is gonna be hard.
So who bid on these? Who came up with these? To get like,
Before my time, I don't know, but when I got onto it, we basically were all the contract with the frame.
Yeah, there was a couple. The other.
I remember years ago, way back 4 or 5 years ago, out with Gallup out here, and we were talking to McAllister and Gosselin about the granite and about the sidewalk, and we did get some numbers, and then the study came, the scoping study came into play, and then nothing else had happened, and
Yeah,
that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
You've been working on this project for a long time.
yeah, I mean, from the start of the scoping study to the end of it, I think we wrapped it up in under a year, but yeah, I think it's been languishing for a little while before that with the grants and all the other sidewalk and building we talked about.
We started pre-paving the town before the
That's
water, we talked about sidewalks.
Yeah,
So take me back to segment 2.
yeah,
So segment 2 had 4 alternatives.
correct.
The recommended alternative of the 4 was alternative 2.
Yeah,
alternative two has a price tag, which is different than the others.
Yeah,
Who chose alternative two?
the community
Okay,
surveys, basically.
right.
Yeah.
So. Coming back to my original point. That's a Florida zone.
It's the V-Trans process.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to make sure that the widest, they're casting the widest net possible. And
yeah,
that they're not just expending money for no reason. So that's why they have a survey in there and if people answer the survey and pick an alternative. Now, V-Trans can say, we're recommending exactly what the people said. Right?
it
But this-
happens to be the most.
Which happens to be both things, absolutely, but at the time, we did not put any numbers in there, it was just, what do you think we need functionally? It wasn't based on numbers, like, the numbers came after, like, once we picked the options, then the engineers went back and did all the calculations for it. So when the town looked at it, it was just, the first things that we asked were, why do we need sidewalks? And we got a bunch of reasons for it, and then we came up with something called a purpose and need statement. And that was, designing that, and based on that purpose and need statement, we went, okay, here's how we think we are going to meet the goals, and came up with those alternatives. And then once we came up with the alternatives, we sent out the surveys. Surveys happened, and we got all this back. I was actually a little disappointed that they picked the most expensive option, but hey, that's what the town said. I'm with you on that. Like, I look at this. and go, okay, that's fine.
They had no numbers.
But no one had any numbers, right?
Right.
This would make sense.
I even remember asking it at
I'm wondering, it's like, how do we get to that in there without this board, who's gonna spend the money?
We don't get a say.
no, and it's not like exactly the questions that you're
And
asking.
you gotta say no to the whole thing.
What does V,
No, that,
what does V-Trans pay for? Can we edit this after? And the town, I asked all of those questions.
Yeah.
Exactly like yours, because what am I trying to do? Same thing as you. Why are we paying so much for what we need, right? The less we can pay, the better it is. But unfortunately, the process dictates that we go based on what the survey says. At the end of the day, what I could say is, we at least, even if we don't have V-Trans pay for it, we at least had a professional engineering company look at all these things, do all the legwork for us, and now if we decide to build sidewalks even on our own dime, we know exactly what to do. At least it got us to that point. But you're right, like, now your decision, the select board decision is, first, whether we want to do it, and then how do we want to pay for it? If we want to go through V-Trans, we've already checked off the box, which is have a report ready. And they'll pay for 80% of all of that stuff. If we decide to go on our own, then, it's whatever we want to do, but we at least have an awesome plan that someone put together for us that now we can play off.
Oh, boy. 90%.
Give you the 10%. Usually good at this stuff.
Yeah, that's a toughie, isn't it?
Think about it, if it comes through the middle of the night, send me a text or something.
so let's figure out that, you get a calculator there.
On my phone, I do.
So are there
What do you want to calculate?
other grants?
It's gonna take $380,000.
We can make it where we want to pay anything, as
Yeah.
long as we look. for
How
other
much?
grants.
Take $380,000
The main thing is that
Yeah.
V-Trans is willing to pay 80% of this project, so we already have like, it's like a. Lack of a better term.
Divided by 560.
For the total,
678.
So basically, it's about.
what's you're looking at the total project?
No, it's just alternative two. I just wanted to figure out roughly what it costs per foot, there's sidewalk, curb, and then other granite curb. And then just all of it. It's about.
What may be on?
$678.
But
Yeah. $670 a foot.
they put a granite curb where there's not sidewalk.
I don't think so, no, the granite curve is only gonna be where the sidewalks are.
So we have 900 linear feet of fill. Go to page 36, so you don't have to go. Bye. Here, so we can just look at it, so for instance, we get 900 linear feet
One of the segments,
Just segments to that, I can try to. We have 900 linear feet of curb. You would think you'd almost have 900 linear feet of sidewalk, if, unless the sidewalk goes where, or the curb goes where there's no sidewalk, and it looks like here, this doesn't say linear feet, but it's a 550 what? Is that 560 square yards? Yeah, that's probably what it is, 560 square yards. Okay, so do, okay, 900 times 5, okay. Okay. I get it. How thick is the sidewalk?
That orange. I think it's like orange first, like it's probably gonna be like 4 or 5 inches high
so that total is 382 for that,
for segment 2, alternative 2, correct?
yeah, so we'd be 20% of that,
Correct.
so 20, 40, 50.
I mean, the overall cost is 6 something,
So we'd get 55, you know.
so 20% was a little over $100,000, right? 150,000. We'd be on 150 a little bit higher, right? 150.
That's just one section.
That's just right here,
Wait, what's the lot?
72,000.
That's not bad compared to the entire thing. I mean, it is a lot of money, but compared to 382, and the sidewalk are gonna get done at some point. So while the absolute number is large, I agree. Comparatively, I mean, I think it's just what it is. Either good or bad. It's
Well,
kind of what everyone-
now we have the layout. What if we had contractors come in and give us
Quotes?
quotes?
Yeah, could do that.
Cause
Although I'm not entirely sure,
or do you have to use the frame group?
we don't know, we don't have to use a different group. I believe there's another grant or something that V-Trans is putting out, and if we are to go through them for the construction, then I believe. I'm not sure if we have to do the grant process before we start going out to contractors and, doing RFPs for it. So, I mean, I guess we could always look for what the cost is going to be and then decide from there, but. I don't think we should go in and do an official bidding for this.
I think the first thing we should do is see about if they have a grant us to lower speed limit. If we can't achieve,
I think if we go down that route, we're gonna be waiting for too long. I think that we need to divorce the two. I think keep the speed limit and the crosswalk by itself and just focus on getting a sidewalk under the village. Because that's a whole other thing.
if we're gonna make a sidewalk to cross to a school where it's a 50-mile-an-hour stretch and we can't do anything about the speed, we may want to consider something different, like a box culvert to get through to the school or something different, and then that would change the design of the whole study and of where
That's true.
the sidewalk won't even go in the right place. We have
That's
the
true.
sidewalk in the wrong place.
Yeah, no, I see it from that standpoint. I don't know. I mean, what do you think the feasibility of like doing a culvert or something along those lines is versus just putting a crosswalk? Because again, even if you want to put a culvert that goes on the other side, the schools will have to come into play with it. I just think that if we go down that route of focusing on that crosswalk and getting kids onto the other side, we're gonna be waiting around for a lot longer. Into just getting this done now.
I would think they would, it's a school zone. It's a school zone and they give us, like a town status, so I would imagine you're saying that school is within the town, so there should be a school zone. That there isn't, probably it just hasn't been addressed since they changed. Since they changed the town of Coventry to get status for this.
Yeah.
Probably they just haven't. No one's looked into this, no one's looked into it, right? You sat.
That's possible, and I can disagree with you. All I'm saying is, I'm just trying to like figure out the timing of this, right? We have a grant that's going to be coming up like in June or July of this month. Or this year, sorry. If we go down that route, we go down the route of changing the speed limit, now that becomes a gating factor, which we can't apply for that grant till next year. And then it also depends on whether or not you actually get the grant. So the way I'm looking at it is because this is the bigger piece and you have to spend more money to get all this done. Figuring out whether you can get that grant and get this going would be more important, and that we can tie in the crosswalk to the school at another time based on how the sidewalk thing works out. Right, because otherwise we're gonna hold off an entire village just to get that crosswalk going. The biggest bang for the buck is to get this taken care of while we fight the speed limit battle with V-Trans. And figure that out once that's taken care of.
So, but at the end of the day, it's still this project's about $130,000 to the town.
Correct.
That's the total.
Yeah, I mean, in my mind, I would say it says 666, you guys should probably assume 750 for the total project, because you're gonna have to come up with some sort of management reserve, things go wrong, things change, you don't know, so. I would assume a total cost of about 750.
So $150,000.
Yeah,
She did say she adjusted for inflation since she has some time on this. It looks like not until 2027 before we can actually start construction. So the price is not, might be a little inflated.
2027, so 4 years out.
Once the V-Trans takes quite a while to do their end of things, so it would be a little while.
so they have a whole process, and that's why I'm kind of, harping on this time.
So we may even like, it's not a project's gonna start next year.
Everything is gated by time, and so it's,
So if we apply for the grant,
yeah, we'll probably know
if
by
we
then.
cancel the grant later on, nothing's happening. So if it doesn't hurt us to apply for the grant and then not do it.
Yeah, we could do that. I mean,
And then meanwhile, by the time we get the grant and anything starts,
we figured that
maybe we
part
have
out.
the speed limit lowered to 35 miles an hour, and maybe if we can't lower the speed limit, then we just shit can the whole project.
I mean, even if we, so. If we decide to change the design based on whatever we do for that speed limit over there, like if you're gonna put in a culvert, for example. We'll need to go through another scoping study for V-Trans to then pay for that. So there's the other, V-Trans won't pay for anything other than what's in here.
It doesn't look like phase two. Alternate two, phase two, segment two, alternate two, this is gonna stay probably the same. Unless the town decided to change the content. That's segment three,
That's actually pretty good.
right, so two,
We get to do,
two,
Wouldn't be effective when you do.
no, too solid. All I'm saying is, you don't never project for segment 3 of the sidewalk. I would get this going if we can, and then work that separately, but I do like your idea, Scott, that. We apply for the grant, see if we get the grant, and at that same time, if we fight for the speed limit and we can get that going, then maybe there might be a way to like modify the grant or something along those lines. But at least we know we have the money and if it works, you're absolutely right, then great, we can go ahead with the project.
may just do segment two with V-Trans.
Absolutely, and then
Do
return it back.
segment three and never do segment one.
Yep.
And then figure it out later.
And that's something we need to talk to V-Trans about, so yeah, I'd say at least apply for the grant, see where that goes.
But that's if you never want to change the way the common is and change the road, or if you want to just keep it the way it is.
Correct. Well, we should
Should almost take a walk. And see-
We should do something
Look
with
at
it.
it. You know what I mean? Look at it. I've never really walked from that. And probably not a very good day for you to walk. I think there's a wheelchair in the back. I probably
It's
wish
just,
we had a sidewalk.
it's just one of those things where it's such a. That's a large project.
Yeah, it
A
is.
lot of moving parts, a lot of work. And to be the decision makers at the end coming in and trying to absorb all of that at the same time and not having adjusted, has been able to adjust on the way through is always a little bit, keeps me at 80–90%. Like the 4-foot sidewalk going to 5, why?
ADA compliance,
Maybe.
I don't know, that's where I
Right.
let the engineers.
So I don't know if our sidewalk has a curb. We might have a sidewalk, but I don't think we have a granite curb. I don't think no curb, so sidewalk has a curb.
ADA compliance,
Maybe.
No, it is.
There's a lot of village streets with 4 feet. I walk them every month.
oh, I'm not saying that there aren't 4 feet sidewalks,
And
they
so
just
it's
probably
probably-
haven't been updated yet.
Or this is the pet project sidewalk Montpelier thing that got money specifically for it, and there could be still other money outside of this thing for sidewalks when you're doing your streets or you're doing your infrastructure. Different ways to look at that stuff. And as an example of that, this is a village street. This isn't a town street. You have infrastructure under that car. So,
Okay, I'm.
water lines,
Mhm.
there's different infrastructure under there. And I remember when we were tarring this last time, we were telling Dave, do not tar that until you fix all that infrastructure, because you're gonna tear all this up.
So then what you might wanna think about is when we do go through with this project and it's all torn up, take the opportunity to fix the infrastructure at the same time.
Correct, so, but that's like, now you gotta do all of this other work, and you gotta figure it out.
So
And that's not our control. That's water.
Everything's new though, for the water district. Everything, all the curbs, all the curbs, all of them, they're all branded. All the water stops are new.
Drain issue, there's a number of issues under that road.
I don't think there's that many.
So it's just moving parts. So
I understand, I mean, any project along this, we're gonna have tons of moving parts, so they're not all going to line up appropriately. And so it really comes down to what we wanna do. If the goal is to update sidewalks, then absolutely, like, there isn't much money that we're wasting on this. But if we do really believe that a sidewalk needs to be updated, and the surveys that we did showed that, and they also said how they want to go about doing it. We're getting an 80-20 cost share benefit from V-Trans for having gone through this, just. I don't think you're gonna get any cheaper alternatives by if we decide to go on our own at a later time.
Well, I think if in 6 years from now, or 4 years from now, or 3 years from now, we want to decide to put sidewalks from there all the way to the school. We're not doing it for 150 grand.
Yeah.
No,
Not happening.
not even close. So. The grant is, I can see doing above and beyond what you really need
Yeah,
by getting free money.
that's the
Because
way
it's
to
still
go
gonna be cheaper than pouring a 4-foot sidewalk
on our own.
with no curb all the way around. You know, if you call the town stuff and say, I wanna put a 4-foot sidewalk all the way from the school down to here and then from here up to the church.
They're gonna charge you an animal
And it's gonna be more than $150,000. It's a lot. You know.
I did your homework.
But if you do apply for it, you don't have to use it.
I would think that's the case, yeah, if you haven't used the money, then, yeah, then you can return it technically, but. I would think that, then we would be holding that money from someone else who would be able to use it from that standpoint. I think we're gonna go for it, then we should go for it with both BK and then both the one just about.
So when do we have to apply for the grant? June, in middle of June?
Well, you got to start now, the deadline is like, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's very towards the beginning, but, I'm not sure about that one.
Otherwise, we're waiting a year for it to happen. And then how many years from there on out? So those numbers that you see there, which she said after like 2027, are based on us applying this year for the grant. So if we don't, then the numbers, then they can always come back and say, well, the numbers we gave you are not enough for that.
And when you apply for the grant, you apply for you'd apply for alternate 2 and alternate 3.
I would think so. I'm not sure how the grant application work. Like, I haven't looked into that part, but I also have. So, yeah, I don't know how that works. It may just be like we're applying for a grant for updating our sidewalks and they would ask you for the amount and then they would ask if we have a sidewalk sloping study taken care of. And we just, that's all this.
And if we did alternate, and the thing would be nice if we did alternate 2, but we never did alternate 3. Would we not get reimbursed for alternate 2?
You may be able to because we're technically not deviating from the whole thing, right? Like, we're still building alternate 2 or segment 2 based on what, this approved is, yeah. It may be, I don't know, it's a good question. So,
was the question?
If we apply for the grant for alternate 2 and alternate 3, alternate 1, or alternate anything, so we say we apply for the $666,300. 2-3 years go by, it's time to start. Okay, so we get the prices and they're in the right realm. We do alternate 2. Meanwhile, we still got a 50-mile-an-hour speed limit up here. We have no crosswalk, because the speed limit is too fast. And they don't want to lower the speed limit. Are we gonna do alternate, are we gonna bring the sidewalk all the way to the school at that point? Oh, probably, but say we didn't, say we decided, all right, we got a grant for a box culvert and we're gonna go underneath the road. But the sidewalk can't follow the same path as on this diagram.
yeah, I guess that just basically, like,
Are we not gonna get reimbursed for, we want the money for 2 and screw it, we're gonna pay for, or we're gonna get a different grant for 2, is that
yeah,
possible?
the question basically is, can we go through this partially and still be able to use part of the money versus using all of the money, right?
Or do you make the sidewalk go right to the end and be nice, and then you do something different from there to if the wood house? I mean,
You know, I would say a lot of things happen in these projects. We could have started with the intention of doing both, and that's what we did. And then as the project went along, things may have come up because of which we couldn't finish. You know, you can't hold a town responsible for unforeseen circumstances. So, yeah, we could potentially do that.
Who's our state contact on this?
On V-Trans.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I believe it's John Livy for this project. I don't know if that changes when the grant changes.
John what?
Livy,
Only?
L-E-M-E. There's no U, there's no O, I-E-U-S. I believe. Yeah. They didn't put his name on the report.
Oh, they did?
I don't know, I'm asking, but I honestly haven't seen the final report.
But it actually might be in the front page of the old work.
I have no presentation, but it's not there.
John would be right here.
Unfortunately, John's not on it.
Here, we're gonna cut it down with this five foot. Access, we can find.
That's it. And John Kaplan is the guy we need to contact for, speed limit.
Wow, I see it. They get the client from their house, so we have to decide all that.
Well, you're gonna have to think through all that, and potentially you're gonna have to create some ordinances for parking. You're not gonna let people park on the sidewalk.
So maybe this comes.
They are now.
Well, but, you know, you go through this and it's gonna create ordinance.
Oh, no, absolutely.
And you're gonna have to enforce that.
So does this come down like this, and we cut it in, and then the sidewalk goes right in front of the house, and then they park into the sidewalk, you know, things, some of these pictures, there's a lot of questions.
There is quite a few things to think about.
Well, then we'll have to repave, we do this and repave the whole road. And that's when we want power over to the, we never ran power out to the common, did we? Or did we get?
Yeah,
power?
we've got power.
Yeah,
There's
we
power to
did
the
get
common, yeah, because we put up,
We didn't run water.
we put Christmas tree lights up there.
This fire hydrant, it's fine, we might want to go on this side, we could go. Holes in the way, you know, they're not on it.
So. Let's say we. Agree to try. Then what the number was ish, what, total project.
600 something.
650,000.
150,000 ish.
Max, yeah.
So. So let's say we do that ish. We would. we should put that on the budget line
Yep, absolutely.
for the town meeting,
Mhm.
let the town vote that up or down.
Yeah, we could do that. Would this be under like? Yeah, I guess we have to vote it out. Or could you use the community development fund to work this through?
You could, but we're having discussions about that now.
Okay. Yeah, my only thought with this would be, we could go down that route. Timing wise, it's gonna add some timing challenges, basically. So if the town does approve it, right, then we're basically saying we're not gonna be able to apply for this grant until next year. Or we could potentially apply for it this year. And then if we get it, I guess we're good to go and the town approves it, but if the town doesn't approve it, and we've gotten it, we could always say we don't want the grant.
I think we want to apply for the grant and then let the town approve it, yes or no, say, listen, you've got a grant
Yeah,
for $700,000. For sidewalks in the town from the corner to the school.
yeah,
20%, the town has to pay somewhere around 140, 150,000 under the 750, yes or no?
So you're, so you're saying you would want to go through the mechanics, but we kind of went through that 15 minutes ago and you were, so if we got voted down,
right, then we say,
kind of held that money from other towns.
Not really, because no one's, it's 5 years out, 4 years out.
Well, yeah, but they're all gonna be.
they're all gonna be buying for it.
They're all lined
They're
up.
all gonna be buying for it.
They're all lined up for it.
But in my mind, though, if we start construction and then say we're only gonna do partial construction, now we've held the money for 5 years. Versus us saying now, within 8 months, the town says no, it's all a timing thing.
I'm not as opposed as I was yesterday,
That's good.
because I was ignorant yesterday.
Yeah.
You've given me a lot of pieces that, I wasn't seeing.
Mhm.
And so until I really totally understand something, see all moving parts and it was thought out,
Yeah,
then we can have that frosting on the cake discussion. So if we're this close to the frosting on the cake discussion, it leads me to the next bigger conversation that we've begun having, which is how we fund our town.
Mhm.
I am becoming more openly awkward for the others, I'm sorry, to say we're overspending in this town.
I agree.
Spending way too much money. And one method of slowing that down is putting those expenses in front of voters.
Mhm.
And not in a blanket. We have special fund money, nobody ever knows what it's going to, nobody.
You wanna go line item by line item.
Line item by line item,
I got you.
and say, here's a project that's going to, that the select board thinks is important.
Yep.
Because we've done a scoping study and we've submitted for a grant and we've done this and we've done that.
Yep.
But that $150,000 should be voted on at town meeting by the entire town.
I agree.
And if they say no, the project is killed.
I agree.
I agree too.
Yeah, that's me too, because when they picked the plan, there was no numbers, it was just.
It was just the design and what
Right.
they wanted
It had
for
something.
something.
Well, we worked good for the town. So now you've done all the work.
Yeah. And now it comes.
Yeah, can we approve it? Yes, and can we just pay for it out of the money we have?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, but does that make any sense? We may vote,
It's how we've been doing
we
it.
may vote to put all the extra fund money into long-term investments and dissolve all those funds at town meeting.
That's where I'm headed.
Yeah, and then
It's
just,
just too much money, right? I mean,
I don't disagree.
we've spent $3 million in the last 5 years through special funds. $3 million. Not through your appropriated regular costs, but at $3 million. Too much money. And it's projects like this, they're all good, right? They're good, but
I mean, I'd say if we're getting something at the end of it, then it's money well spent.
I think it's well, that's sidewalks in the whole town from here to the school. And then we pay to do the rest, another 75 down there for $200,000.
Yeah.
For the town, it's a good, For $1 million worth of work, it's not bad.
We might think so, and we might get thrown with that.
No, I completely agree. All I'm getting to is
More likely than not, the vast majority don't live in the village.
exactly.
When they look at percentages of an overall budget, they're gonna say, well, that's 20%. Literally, we're gonna increase our op budget that year by 20%, but sidewalks in a village that nobody walks. That's what they're gonna say.
I know.
So.
I mean, he's gonna get up with his study and say, well, do you know that there's more than 300 crossings over by the school? And what if your kid got hit? And we didn't do anything.
Yeah.
All it takes is one death for 120,000. Are you kidding me?
You're close to getting me at town meeting to vote yes for the project, I'm just saying,
No, I agree with
others.
the explanation, like, yeah, they're gonna step up and say, we don't wanna spend because of this.
I will tell you, they probably will, though, because that school one, that's important, and it should be a school zone. I don't know why it's not, it really should be.
They vote school budget down every year.
Yeah.
You know, but-
I think they passed it the last
I wanna
4 or
get
5
some
years.
nice-
They voted the bond down.
Oh, can we put some nice light posts around this whole sidewalk? I think so.
So if we went with that theory, and we did not spend this out of special fund, we could say to me, apply for the grant as it's put forward.
Yep.
Which is what we kind of have to do, is go back into a corner on it, which I hate.
If you want them to spend, if you want them to pay for us, this is kind of what it is.
Right. And then, we would put it into
Yeah, vote next year.
we would put it into the March
Yeah.
meeting on a standalone
Yep.
as part of a budget, but not an appropriation, but as part of a budget expense.
Yep.
On a standalone.
But we wouldn't be spending the money in 2024.
No.
Yeah, but they can earmark it and set it aside.
Exactly. You can phrase it saying that we're putting this money aside for X number of years.
Earmark it.
You approved to take $100,000 out of
No, new money. New money,
new money.
new money.
Their old money's gonna be gone.
And your old money's gonna be gone. So you're gonna have new money and you're gonna say, we just took in two, this is where we're at, right? We're taking in $2 million, we're spending 1 million.
Yeah.
Currently on ops. And that's likely to go up a little bit because of the current system we've been doing by just buying trucks and building and everything else out of these other ones. We haven't been adding that into normal operations like every other town does. So it's a little bit of fiction on what your
What the
actual
actual
budget
goals. Yeah, I'm with you.
ops are.
Yeah.
To get those, what does it cost to run the town?
Yeah, you wanna pull the one-offs out and keep the recurring ones in. as
Yeah.
part of it.
And then as you get these projects,
Carol, Scott.
it's gonna grow your balance in your investments a lot faster. And then as you get these projects and others that are important to the town, you put them on there.
Yeah.
You do have the money to buy it.
Yeah.
But it's, if
It's
you want to or not, and if you don't, then if you put it down, and that $150,000 goes off to investments for.
That's fair.
And next, you just keep doing that year after year after year.
Yep.
On these types of projects, and then it's not sitting here with 2 out of 3 people essentially to
Deciding.
make decisions to spend millions of dollars.
I agree. So, but yeah,
And
it's,
especially too, if you reach out to the people who took the study.
Yeah.
Said, hey, it's very important that you come to town meeting to vote on this sidewalk that you put their input in. Because it's coming,
If they want it.
they want it.
yeah,
So what would we have to do? What are the mechanics of your next step then?
Stephanie, I mean, here, I think we're just, grant application process at this point, so we need to figure out what the V-Trans grant is, and then have someone put the grant together for us.
Yes, which I believe it comes down to the project manager, but I can work with, I'll touch base with David. That's David.
Okay.
I'll talk to him about it and see if he's got that paperwork. But yeah, it looks like we have to apply for June. We'll know by August whether we are gonna receive anything or not.
And then if that doesn't go through, now you don't even have to put anything on your in your March vote,
Right,
right?
if we don't get the grant, then.
It'll go through.
I hope so.
It's too well done, too reputably done. Fairly new in the whole scheme of the grant for money for this, I think, right?
Me?
Yeah, I mean, all of there's there's obviously an amount of money that Montpelier set aside for sidewalk scope study to the state.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it's new in that process of sending that money out.
I think so. I'm not sure what the history of it is, to be honest. But
They left the sidewalk off, you know, where the house is, where the car is parked there, and it doesn't even stop. This side of the road is straight, this whole side is pretty kind of dry.
yeah, that's the one that I hate, but this one
It's a community center. Here's the corner. of it.
Yeah,
You know how we're talking on the car, and just parked it in, It should be.
I'm like,
We can paint the money to make nice parking, and then.
We didn't have to do
this
that,
side,
you know,
we put the sidewalk on this side.
background stuff that you can get rid of, or have like that backup paperwork and
Yeah, for what?
Michael, you know.
Good, are we done with the
No, you're
discussion?
too quiet. What's your opinion?
Oh, I don't know if I'm not sure if I'm ready to give an opinion on the record yet. I think what's happening here is good. Apply for the grant. Make it a budget item, put it in front of the voters. I'm not ready to usher an opinion yet. But I think this was a great discussion tonight. I think you guys learned a lot, which was important.
Yeah,
And,
great job, that's nice.
and I think the plan going ahead is smart for the town and for the project.
Is there danger in us actually making a decision tonight to do that, or should we go under eight?
There's no danger in you making, what decision are you gonna make? A motion to,
Allow the planning commission to.
I mean, they don't really need your permission to apply for the grant, do they?
technically, you're right. Technically, you're right.
I mean, they can apply for the grant and you could still say no.
But if you guys do put it in motion and it's recorded, then at least it shows the town that we're all in this together.
Right.
So the planning commission going up and doing something.
That would
like
be- I would support that.
Yeah, I'm still thrown by that. I don't know how the planning commission gets the authority.
Because this is for the planning of the town. If you look at the statutes, I looked it up. We as the planning commission can have staff, can hire people, can do all the things as long as it's under the auspices of updating the town for the future. That's our authority. We don't need the select board to tell us what we can and cannot do technically.
But you gotta get money for.
The money part, yes, the money part.
And I actually looked it up and everything you just said is correct.
As long as. we get the budget.
Yeah.
Right.
We gotta take the budget. We can do without select board authority. But we don't want to because we want to play nice with everybody, you know, and exactly.
Joke on the thinking everybody.
It's you know, it's one of those checks and balances
Right.
thing. Like technically, the select board can't authorize public projects without the planning commission's approval. You guys can have all the money you want, but if the planning commission says, no, you can't do it, then you're gonna have to go to court to figure all that out. So far, you haven't had a planning commission that does that, and so things have kind of worked out in a certain way, but as far as the town's planning, construction, anything that goes, planning commission has the authority of the select board. Yeah, we do. So last year when I got the planning commission, this is what I looked into from start to finish, what can the planning commission do, what can we not do? We can technically provide you guys with our budget that you then have to put into the town vote for it to pass or not. That's something that the planning commission has never done in the past. We've always come to the select board to get all these things approved. You know, like there are backdoors, we could.
You can do it at town meeting too, the town of Concord Planning Commission wants to do the sidewalk. thing.
Yeah, easily.
You want.
Get 50 signatures and then go with it. That's happened before, right? So
Don't bring that up.
I'll just say, like, all I'm getting at.
See what we're doing?
We want to have a good political system in our town. So I think the best way to go about this is for us, like, we did all of one work on that end, and our thing would be, since we're putting all this in, and hopefully we can convince you that the money is. You know, worth to be spent, then when you guys are convinced, we bring it towards the town and let them vote on it, and then that way, you know, we've done our work of showing what plan we need to put in, you guys have shown your due diligence of how the money is being spent, and then the town decides whether or not we want to do this whole thing anyways. And that's the way I think it should work.
That is definitely how the money should get spent.
Yeah.
It really needs to come to the vote.
Agreed.
So. We don't have to.
You don't have to do anything.
Okay.
Nope. But you know, you can make a declaration of. That
You
you're
could
behind,
recommend
yeah.
that the planning commission apply for the grant, you don't have to make it a motion. If based on what you've heard, you guys think it's worth going down that path.
I think all that we said minutes ago was, I don't see any harm in that.
I don't think there's any harm in it. So,
Either.
I mean, you've still got a way out if you want to weigh out, and it shows that you support these guys that have done a lot of work, and
We're supporting the town's efforts for the sidewalks, forget us, we're gonna be gone in a year or two, this is, do we want the side?
Pradeep's already gone. He's not even on the
Doesn't matter, for me, it's whether or not we believe that the sidewalks are a worthwhile investment, forget everything else, if we think it is, then I think that as we all wanna work together and.
I don't like the price of it, but I think it is, and there's funds available, so if you're ever gonna do it,
Give it a shot, right?
and if the townspeople want it, fine, if they don't, fine, I don't really care either way.
Are you guys unanimous or you?
Our group was very well unanimous on the project.
How big are you now? 5,
We're
7,
fine.
5? And you're all on the same page.
And yeah, we've changed over several people and everybody that left was on the same page also.
we're good, then we're done then? Okay, we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
No worries.
95.
All right, when that 5% question pops in your head, let me know.